Our fourth week of bringing you world and local news through the exciting new medium of television. President Truman expressed approval this morning of the Attorney General's investigation into who might be responsible for increasing prices on housing, food, and clothing. Mr. Truman said that this would constitute an effort to determine who is profiting beyond normal margins. And on the local scene, Mayor O'Dwyer said he'd like to see a grand jury established in each county to inquire into gambling practices. The mayor praised the Queens County grand jury for investigating alleged police grafting on bookmakers. Finally, President Truman will be in New York tomorrow to inspect the site of the new United Nations building and to meet with state and local Democratic leaders. They will return to Washington before nightfall. And now, a look at tomorrow's weather.
Well, it's been rain and more rain. 4 soggy days. But that static cloud cover is finally blowing out to sea. And according to the Weather Bureau, we can expect clearing weather throughout the entire weekend. And that friendly old ball of fire in the sky is going to be smiling all along the eastern seaboard. Yes, all things considered, Jones Beach or Coney Island might be a good idea.
Even though the fog was almost impenetrable, I managed to find my way to the familiar door. I opened it quietly and went inside. Ahead of me, the sound of voices. I knew it was Dr. Fleming and his nurse working late. They turned as I entered the office.
Mr. Brimmer, what are you doing here?
Sorry for the interruption, Doctor, but I have an appointment with a murderer.
Well, I don't understand.
It's quite simple. You see, the man we've been looking for is you.
But that's ridiculous.
Is it?
Doctor, he has a gun.
And the doctor here has something even more deadly. We'll just open his medical bag, and you'll notice, clearly labeled...
Atropine.
Precisely. Poisonous and colorless. And introduced into the victim's glass through the agency of innocent-looking ice cubes.
So that's how it was done.
Get out of my way. Both of you.
Is he all right?
He'll be out for a while. Just long enough for you to call the police.
Tonight's episode of the Casebook of Simon Brimmer was brought to you by Vitacream, the hair tonic for that shinier shine.
Okay, we're in commercial. Stand by for the final announcement and play out.
Tune in again next week, same time, same station, when Simon Brimmer, America's favorite criminologist, raconteur, and aficionado of the exotic and the bizarre, will bring you another page from his casebook. Until then...
This is Simon Brimmer saying good evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Nice show, huh, Mr. Brimmer?
Hardly.
All the thrills of a church picnic. No pace, no suspense, no story. We'll talk tomorrow, 9 sharp. Mr. Queen. Mr. Queen. Sorry that we bored you.
Oh, no. Not really. It was an excellent show.
Oh, come now. You dozed off on the first commercial.
Oh, really, I'm sorry. I usually have a better attention span, but I've been up for 48 hours trying to finish my new book.
Ah, deadlines. We have those here, too. Which is why I need your help.
Mr. Brimmer,
Simon.
I've been thinking about your offer.
I'm a student of the human voice, Mr. Queen, and I sense a certain reluctance in yours. Is it the money?
Oh, no, the fee is very generous.
Well, then what's the problem? You're one of the best mystery writers in the business, and that's exactly what I need. The casebook of Simon Brimmer is just about empty, and that microphone is insatiable. All I'm asking for is the right to buy your private files and have them adapted into radio scripts.
Then my cases would become your cases solved by you.
Well, of course, I couldn't use your name. After all, my audience tunes in to hear me.
Unfortunately, Mr. Brimmer, you're asking me to be a ghostwriter.
A technicality.
Not to me.
All right, then let's say a very rich ghost with silk sheets.
It's tempting, but I'm afraid I'll have to pass.
Mr. Queen, I don't think you understand. I'm offering you an opportunity to add millions to your audience. I don't wish to be interrupted. What? It's for you.
Thank you. Hello?
Hello, Ray.
Dad?
You finished there yet?
Yeah, just about.
Well, on your way home, do me a favor. Stop by 441 Park, the penthouse.
Dad, I haven't got time for a detour. If I don't finish that book...
See you soon, son. Thanks.
Something important?
I don't know. Anyway, Mr. Brimmer, thanks for your offer. I'm sorry it didn't work out.
I hope you know you're making a mistake.
Oh, probably. I make a lot of them.
Good night, Mr. Queen. Get me the newsroom, please. Hello, this is Simon Brimmer. There's a police investigation tonight, something special. Find out all you can and let me know.
Almost as far-fetched as one of your books. A dying clue, which makes absolutely no sense. Which means, of course, it's right up your alley.
Tell me about her.
Name's Monica Gray, one of the top fashion designers since the war. Your wife would probably be wearing her fall line, if you were married.
Attractive and vain.
Why do you say that?
How many of us keep framed photographs of ourselves? It's interesting. What? She's a puzzle addict. Yesterday's crossword. In the bookcase, she's got a thesaurus and a half dozen dictionaries.
That's supposed to mean something?
Maybe. Maybe not. Anyway, Dad, what's your reconstruction?
Looks like it started in here.
I'm sorry. Just get here. That's yours.
Now, I assume she was working here. This is the only lamp that was lit.
These must be her 3 previous collections. The Lady Ruth line in 45, Lady Thelma last year, and Lady Dulcea this year. It's a nice merchandising gimmick. She christened each style with a woman's name.
That's right. Now, tonight she was working on next year's collection.
How do you know?
Because we found one of her sketches in the living room. Now, bear with me. She's working here. She hears a sound.
Possibly the front doorbell.
Right. Right. Now, she gets up, and she goes into the foyer. As I see it, she opens the door, admitting the murderer.
Meaning there's a good possibility she knew him.
And then she walks back into the middle of the room, about here. He shoots her. She falls right next to that sketch she was carrying. We can tell by the blood stains and the indentation on the carpet. No, we dusted that. Just her prints.
Lady Norma. She's very consistent.
Okay. The murderer leaves her for dead. But she's still alive, barely. And she's trying to leave us a clue.
The nearest phone is in the bedroom. That's too far to crawl. She knew instinctively she could only move a few feet. Any pens or pencils in here?
Nope.
Then there was nothing for her to write with, and she realized she'd never make the bedroom.
Well, she did have that piece of paper beside her. Would have been nice if she'd have scratched a name with her fingernail.
But naturally, you noticed that she kept her nails cut short. It was more convenient for her. She was always sketching or handling fabric or using a typewriter, whatever.
Well, anyway, she crawled past the coffee table over to the wall where she pulled out that plug of the clock and that television gizmo. And then she died. Now, that's my reconstruction.
Oh, and very good, too, Dad. I agree with it.
That's as far as I go, because I haven't the slightest idea what the lady was trying to tell us. You ever see one of those things before?
Huh? Yeah, a few.
Damn nuisance. A friend of mine has one. People keep dropping in.
Oh, I wouldn't worry about it. It's just a passing fad. Channel 4, what was on when you pulled out the plug?
Yeah, we call this station an experimental program. News and weather. We're getting a script.
News at that hour?
Yeah, big mistake. Who wants to watch the problems of the world before he goes to bed?
There are so many possibilities. Too many.
Yeah, like what?
Well, maybe she was trying to tell us the time of her death.
Well, we already know that. People on this floor heard a shot around 10:25.
Well, what was she trying to say, and why both plugs? Was she reaching for the clock cord, and did she accidentally pull out the television cord? Or was it the other way around? Is she saying something about electricity? About the failure of power? No. Or is she relating to the television set as a piece of furniture, a box, a console, screen? And what about that clock? Wait a minute.
You got something?
Very clever, Dad. Very shrewd.
Who?
You. You know I'm supposed to be home finishing a book. You know I got a deadline to meet, but you drag me up here and you dangle all this catnip in front of me.
Now, Ellery, I'm not trying
I
to...
said I'm going home.
you.
You're
I'm
not
just
going to
trying-
suck me in this time.
Son, you're doing me an injustice. Besides, I know you. Let's face it, you're hooked. You can't walk out of here.
Can I? I did.
Oh, gee, that's too bad, Inspector. I thought you had him out of the water and into the boat.
I was just thinking.
Yeah?
No headway on the dying clue, but I'm sure you picked up the other information.
What information?
Oh, you know, the obvious things. The fact that she's single, yet she had a man coming here on a more or less regular basis. A pipe smoker, by the way. Oh, excuse me just a minute, Dad.
I should have the autopsy completed by morning. The time of death checks out with the clock.
Huh?
Never mind, I'll give you a call.
I thought so. He was a recent visitor, about medium size.
Well, while you're at it, why don't you tell us the color of his eyes?
I can't do that, but I can tell you his initials.
His initials?
All right, let's start at the beginning. She's single because I saw her name in the penthouse mailbox when I came in downstairs. Miss Monica Gray. By the way, the fact that this is a recent building is unfortunate.
Why?
It has these new self-service elevators. No elevator operator to see who comes and goes.
Get to the man.
A pipe holder. Now, unless she smoked a pipe, she probably kept it here for someone who did. When I was in the bedroom, I looked in the closet, and there's a smoking jacket in there, medium size.
Feely.
Tobacco crumbs in the pocket, not stale. So he was here recently.
And his initials?
CM, Inspector.
Anything else?
No, that's about it. Except he smokes a mild tobacco, heavy on the latakia. Dad, I gotta get home and finish my book.
I guess I got my money's worth.
It's really very simple. I make it a point to be observant and to pay attention to details. Good night, Dad.
Son, you forgot your glasses. Ellery, telephone! Yeah. Yeah, Billy. Fill me in. Really? Yeah. Okay, I'll get dressed, be there in about a half hour.
What'd you do that for?
Only way to get your attention. Did you hear that call?
Call?
The telephone call. We don't have to worry about Monica Gray's dying clue any longer.
Why not?
Because we've got a pretty good hunch who did it.
Our friend CM?
Carson McKell.
The Carson McKell?
The same financier and philanthropist. And he owns the gun that killed her.
You traced it.
His name's on the license. 2 other facts. He's married, and get this. He and his wife live in Monica Gray's apartment building.
I wonder if he smokes a pipe.
Mr. McHale, there are 2 gentlemen here to see you. They're from the police department.
Send them in.
Right this way, John.
Mr. McKell, I'm Inspector Richard Queen. And this is Sergeant Bealey.
I've been expecting you.
Oh?
Dad, Watterson should be here.
I'll call him when necessary. This is my son and associate, Tom McKell. Mr. Watterson is our attorney. I assume you've come to talk to me about Monica Gray.
Dad.
Let me handle this. Miss Gray was a friend of mine, which I'm sure you know already.
A close friend?
I don't have to answer questions like that.
Mr. McKell, this is a delicate situation, and you're an important man. But Miss Gray was murdered last night, and your gun was found in her apartment. I'm afraid that gives me the right to get personal.
We'd had several burglaries in our building, jewelry, furs, and such. And Miss Gray lived alone, and she was frightened. She wanted something for protection.
You gave her the gun?
Yes, I bought it for her a few months ago.
You have a key to her apartment?
Yes.
Then you were in the habit of visiting her.
Inspector, I'm a married man, and this is very difficult for me.
Gail, get Ben Watterson right away. Inspector, are you putting my father under arrest?
That all depends.
On what?
On whether or not he had an alibi for last night. How about it, Mr. McKell?
Move back. What is that? Let him out. Come on.
Counselor, Mr. McKell.
Mr. Watterson?
What are you hiding, Mr. McKell? Why don't you make a statement?
Counselor, my father's been through an ordeal. All he wants is a little privacy.
So what are we going to tell our readers?
Tell him that he's innocent.
Mrs. McKell, are you standing by your husband? I mean, the rumors about his relationship with Monica Gray.
Ramon, get us out of here.
Counselor.
Mr. McKell?
I'm sorry about that, Marion.
Oh, don't be. I'll get used to it.
Ben, any reports come in from the private detectives?
I certainly hope so. The papers have already tried and convicted him.
Well, Marion, it's a difficult case. We're all going to have to go on hoping that something will turn up. We should make something turn up. And soon.
Hi, Penny. Having fun?
How can I? I'm doing my Sonia Heaney bit, and you're not even watching.
Well, I've been reading.
I know you've been reading. You were reading at the zoo. You were reading at Schrapp's. I thought we were supposed to be spending the day together.
Huh? We are spending the day together.
Yeah, you with your nose in a book. I read this one. This is the one where the doctor's the murderer.
Penny, I promised your parents I'd take care of you today. You're my cousin, and I love you. But if you ever do anything like that again, I'll break your neck. Now go skate.
I'm bored with skating.
Then what do you want to do?
I don't know. We could find out why they're following us.
Why, who's following us?
Them.
When did you first see them?
At the zoo.
You sure?
Sure, I'm sure you would be too if you weren't always reading that book.
Wait here. Mr. McKell? Do you know me?
Well, everybody in New York knows you. You and your family come with the morning milk.
We might as well tell him. We were following you, Mr. Queen. I guess we were trying to work up the courage to talk to you.
Oh?
Now that we're face to face, though, I'm beginning to feel a little ridiculous. Tom, I'm sure Mr. Queen has better things to do.
Hey!
Not necessarily. Have you two had lunch?
Penny, is that what they teach you at Miss Pruitt's School for Gifted Children?
I want another one.
You've already had two.
We've tried everything, Mr. Queen, even private detectives. But it's been a stone wall. And we thought since you had the reputation for...
Not minding my own business?
for helping people, we thought we'd talk to you.
What's your interest in this, Miss Stevens?
Gail's dad's private secretary. Yeah. She doesn't believe he's capable of committing a murder. Neither do I.
But my father does. That wouldn't have anything to do with your being here, would it?
Yes, well, partly. We thought you might be able to influence him. I mean, he hasn't been very helpful, at least as far as the alibi is concerned.
Alibi? What alibi? There hasn't been anything in the papers.
Mr. Queen, do me a favor. Let Dad tell you. Just give him 10 minutes.
An unofficial visit. I mean, nobody even has to know you were ever there.
Ellery doesn't have time. He has to take me to the museum, and then we're going shopping at Macy's.
Well, I did promise Penny's parents I'd look after her today. But a matter of life and death, I'm sure they'd understand.
So about my famous alibi. I'm beginning to think it was just a mirage.
Mr. McKell, it might help if you give me some background.
All right. It all started a few months ago. Actually, I met Monica in the elevator of this building. We struck up a conversation, and then I began to see her socially. Then I got into the habit of dropping by her apartment on Thursday nights.
Don't be embarrassed on my account, Mr. Queen. I knew about it from the beginning. Oh, it's more or less an intuition. A wife can usually tell. Cream and sugar.
Oh, black, thanks. Yeah, thank you.
You were saying?
Well, Marion kept it to herself for a while. And then, on the morning of the murder, she asked me point blank if there was another woman. I didn't know what to do.
Yes, you did. You told me the truth. Carson promised to terminate the affair. That was good enough for me.
Terminate. Hardly the best word, considering the circumstances.
Well, I'm sure Mr. Queen understands.
What Mr. Queen doesn't understand is the risk you took. You were having a clandestine relationship with a woman in your own apartment building. Weren't you afraid you'd be seen?
Not really. I wore a disguise.
Disguise?
Oh, nothing elaborate. False mustache and glasses and a funny hat. I suppose it was juvenile in a way, but that was part of the romance of the whole thing. And besides, my wife and I had friends living on the penthouse floor. I thought it was a necessary precaution. When I hear myself talk like this, I feel like a damn fool.
Mr. McKell, Monica Gray was murdered on a Thursday night, the night of your weekly visits. Did you see her? I'd like to know everything you did that night.
Well, I worked late at the office that day. Everybody else had gone home. I was expected at Monica's. I suppose I was delaying the inevitable. Finally, I couldn't put it off any longer. I knew she'd be worried, so I rang her. The phone rang for a long time, which was strange because I knew she was expecting me. And then?
Hello?
Monica? Carson. I just want you to know I'm on my way.
Oh, darling, would you mind very much if we didn't meet tonight? I have a terrible headache, and I could use a good night's rest.
Well, if I came by for just a few minutes.
Oh, believe me, I'd be bad company. We'll make it next week.
Monica, is there something wrong? You sound hoarse.
Probably smoking too much. Anyway, I can hardly keep my eyes open. I'm sorry, darling. I'll call you tomorrow.
I decided to go and see her anyway. If there was a man there, I'd force a confrontation. So I took my usual precautions and left the building. But as soon as I hit the street, I lost my nerve. I suppose I wasn't up to it.
Go on.
Well, I started walking, aimlessly. And finally, I ended up in a bar, and I started to drink. Now, my wife can tell you I hardly ever touched the stuff. But I was in a strange mood that night.
Where was this bar?
That, Mr. Queen, is the problem. I don't remember. I don't even know what time I was there.
And that's your alibi?
That's my alibi. I told you it might be a mirage.
Ellery, Dad thinks the bar was in the West 40s.
It had a mirror and some dark wood.
Unfortunately, so does every bar in New York.
Yes, I know. I've tried to remember. I've racked my brains, but I just cannot remember. I had so much to drink, everything was a blur. No, Mr. Queen, unless I can find that bar, I haven't got a chance.
May I use your phone?
If you want privacy, there's one in there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah?
Inspector, your son is on the phone.
Ellery?
Dad, I've got a question about the McKell case.
The McKell case? That's old news.
Well, whatever it is, I want to know if he checked out his alibi.
What alibi? You mean that cock and bull story about him stopping off at some bar? Why are you so interested all of a sudden?
Dad, the alibi.
I had 5 of my best men check out every bar in the West 40s, not to mention the 30s and 50s. They got a photograph from Mrs. McKell, showed it to every bartender and waiter in the area, day shift, night shift.
All right,
Wait a minute now, I'm not finished. McKell's picture was in all the newspapers, and not one employee of one saloon came forward. Now, if anyone did see him that night, they're suffering from collective amnesia. You still there?
I'm still here.
I'm disappointed in you, son. Don't you think your old man knows his job? That alibi just won't hold water.
All right, Dad, thanks. I just talked to my father.
I can tell by your expression he wasn't very encouraging.
I'm afraid he wasn't. I'm sorry.
Ellery, there's got to be something the police have overlooked.
Perhaps the bartender that night was a substitute. Or maybe he's gone out of town.
No, our detectives already looked into that. Mr. Queen, it was nice of you to come. Tom, call down, have Ramon drive Mr. Queen home.
Smudges, half-obliterated specimens, and a number of reasonably clear prints.
Now, those identifiable fingerprints, who did they belong to?
Most were the deceased's.
Anyone else's?
Yes, sir, the maid's. And there were several clear prints of Mr. McKell's.
The defendant?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Your witness.
Are you aware that Monica Gray's apartment was repainted and redecorated only 2 weeks before her death?
Yes, sir, I was.
Well, isn't it likely that literally hundreds of fingerprints would have been obliterated by a fresh coat of paint?
I suppose so.
So that whole armies could have marched through that apartment without your knowledge. Friends, neighbors, lovers.
Objection.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
I have one. Were Carson McKell's fingerprints at the scene of the crime, or were they not?
They were.
Thank you. That'll be all. So Thursday was your regular night off?
Yes, sir.
Did Miss Gray have company on Thursday nights?
Usually, yes, sir. I'd know because there'd be 2 coffee cups in the morning instead of 1. And there'd be pipe tobacco in the ashtrays.
Pipe tobacco?
Yes, sir.
Was she expecting anyone on the night of her death?
She said a friend was coming over.
Any particular friend?
No, she didn't mention any names. But she did laugh and say that sooner or later we'd have to fumigate the draperies.
And why was that?
Well, it was a joke. You had to know Miss Gray to understand. She was a very particular kind of a lady. She liked the things to smell nice and to look nice, and so she said we'd have to get rid of the smell of that awful pipe tobacco.
No further questions.
My tobacco was not in the ashtray that night. Doesn't that prove I wasn't there?
They'll only claim you didn't stay long enough to smoke your pipe.
Your witness, Mr. Watterson.
No questions, Your Honor.
So you're asking us to believe that this one night, of all the Thursday nights that you met secretly with Monica Gray, you didn't keep the appointment?
She said she wasn't feeling well.
Perhaps she wasn't feeling well, Mr. McKell, after you left her.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. We'll strike that from the record. And I would caution the district attorney against being inflammatory.
My apologies to the court. Now, sir, let's talk for a moment about the murder weapon. Why did you want a gun in Monica Gray's apartment?
I didn't.
You purchased one for her.
There'd been some robberies in the building. She wanted something for protection.
What about your wife?
My wife?
Well, isn't she also a resident of that particular building?
Of course she is.
Oh, then we can assume she's equally vulnerable to an intruder. Did you buy her a gun?
No, I didn't.
And why not?
Because it wasn't necessary. She was never alone.
She was alone the night of the murder.
That was the rare exception. Anyway, my wife did not want a gun in the apartment. Monica did.
So you've said.
It happens to be the truth.
Mr. McKell, do you still persist in your claim that you spent part of that night in a bar?
Yes.
A bar that the police have been unable to locate?
Yes.
A bar that you don't even remember yourself?
I was there.
Well, then where is it, sir? Where is it? Give us its longitude and latitude. Unless, of course, it doesn't exist. Unless, of course, like the rest of your story, it's constructed of smoke. Pipe smoke!
Objection! This is unconscionable, Your Honor.
Withdraw the question.
We'll strike that from the record. Your witness, Mr. Watterson.
Hillary,
Huh?
you not to stay?
No, I thought I'd take a walk and clear the cobwebs.
I don't think I can watch anymore. You want company?
Sure, come on.
I suppose I've gotten too involved, but ever since I started working for Mr. McHale, they've made me part of the family.
Ah.
You haven't heard a word I've said, have you?
I'm still back at that courtroom. I'm sorry. You say you're part of the family. Is that going to be permanent?
What do you mean?
You and Tom.
I didn't know it was that obvious.
Pure intuition.
Reasonably accurate, too. But first, though, I've got to convince Tom I'm not interested in the McHale millions. Then, of course, we've got to wait for this terrible trial to be over. I guess I better get back.
Of course.
What?
You a cop?
Me? No.
Good. I mean, cops like to interfere with my freedom of artistic expression. My father really hates this guy. Says he's a crook. So I'm expressing myself in the American way. You like it?
Terrific. Yeah, it's a work of art. You shouldn't be seen in public with me.
Why not?
Because I'm incredibly stupid. That's the photograph the police were showing to every bartender on the West Side.
Of course it is. I gave it to them.
Mr. Queen, I failed to grasp the significance of all this.
Don't you see? My father made a mistake. We all did. He called in Sergeant Veely and he said, Carson McHale claims to have been in a bar the night of the murder. Check it out. So Sergeant Veely followed standard procedures.
What procedures?
He got a photograph from your mother, he had it duplicated and gave it to 10 or 15 plainclothesmen. He also described Mr. McHale. But something got lost in the shuffle. One little thing he didn't know.
Mr. McHale wasn't himself that night.
Exactly.
What are you two talking about?
Mr. McHale, you were wearing a mustache, glasses, and a hat. Carson McHale didn't go to a bar that night. It was Carson McHale in disguise.
Of course! I was going to see Monica. I still had the makeup on.
Remember you said you were going to stop by your office that night?
Yes,
well,
of course
drinking a little bit, as you said.
Yes.
But you had the presence of mind to change before you went home.
He was staring us in the face all the time.
The wrong face. Who could identify your father when he looked like somebody else?
Of course.
So now?
Now we get another picture of Dad in disguise this time and have it circulated. Mr. Watterson, please. Let's just hope there's a bartender in this town with a very good memory.
Raise your right hand. Do you swear by Almighty God that the testimony you're about to give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Be seated.
Would you state your name and occupation, please?
Matthew Thomas Cleary, part owner and bartender of the County Cork Bar and Grill on West 48th Street.
I'd like you to cast your mind back to the night of the murder. Night of the 28th, to be exact.
All right.
Now, Mr. Cleary, would you tell us if one of your customers that night is present here in this courtroom?
Yes, sir.
And would you point him out to us, please?
Sure, right there.
Thank you. No further questions.
Frankly, Mr. Cleary, I just don't see how you can remember. Couldn't it have been another night?
It could have, but it wasn't. How many nights does my granddaughter have a birthday? And besides, I was an hour late getting to work.
But to remember one man after all this time.
I got a charity box on the bar. This fella pays for his drinks with a 20. I give him change, and he shoves over a 10 spot. Put it in the box, he says. Something for the office, he says. That makes me remember him, because nobody ever gave me a 10 spot before.
Was the bar crowded?
Always is.
Well, then maybe you didn't notice what time he left.
Sure, I noticed. It was 11 o'clock right on the button.
Mr. Cleary, this astonishing memory of yours.
What's astonishing? Every night at 11 o'clock, I go out to get the papers. We both left together.
No further questions.
He was kind of in his cup, see? So I even got him a cab.
No further questions.
Just trying to be helpful, sir.
Members of the jury, have you reached your verdict?
We have, Your Honor. We find the defendant not guilty.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The jury is dismissed. Court is adjourned.
Thank you.
Dad, it's all over. Mr. Queen, thank you.
We're very much in your debt.
I'm very happy for all of you.
Thank you.
Ellery, thank you.
Congratulations, Mr. Queen. Perhaps you don't remember me.
Yes, you're Simon Brimmer. Are you a friend of the McKells?
No, just an interested bystander. I've been following the case. Nice bit of courtroom theatrics, making the invisible man visible. Your idea, no doubt.
Well, pardon me.
Oh, come now, Mr. Queen. Take credit where it's due. Oh, by the way, I think you'll find my program interesting tonight. So will the McKells.
Ellery, we should have invited your father. I guess he could use a drink.
No, poor man. Now the case is open again.
Oh, he's used to that. Yes, well, at least he's off our backs. Maybe now he'll come up with something. Woman like Monica Gray, she must have had at least a dozen enemies.
I didn't meet her, but I wish I had.
That's a strange thing to say. Why?
Well, she was talented and beautiful.
And cryptic.
What do you mean?
Oh, you're forgetting her farewell gift to us. The television set and the stop clock.
Well, Ellery, now that Dad's free, it's not really your problem anymore.
Oh, I wish I could believe that.
What's all this?
The gentleman requested it, sir.
Just something I have to listen to. Don't let me break up the party.
And now, that well-known expert in crime and deduction, Simon Brimmer.
Good evening. Before bringing you tonight's drama, I'd like to introduce a new feature to our program. My comments on current and as yet unsolved crimes. A case in point, the Monica Gray murder. As my listeners may know from their newspapers, Carson McKell was acquitted today, which poses an interesting question. If McKell is innocent, then who's guilty? I do not pretend to have solved the case. Your humble servant is not permitted access to police files. But I do have information which New York's finest has overlooked. Allow me to introduce my guest, Miss Cora Edwards. Welcome, Miss Edwards. Please don't be nervous.
Yes, sir.
You were Monica Gray's maid, were you not? Just Speak right into the microphone.
Yes, sir, I was.
Is it true that I contacted you today and asked you a very simple question?
Yes, sir. You wanted to know if anybody visited Miss Gray on the day of her murder.
Precisely. The most obvious question in the world. And yet the police never asked it, did they?
No, sir. I guess they were so sure Mr. McKell murdered her that they weren't looking for anybody else.
And you never volunteered this bit of information.
No, sir. They said they knew who did it. They said Mr. McKell did it.
Yes, but now we know it wasn't Mr. McKell. And according to what you told me, Monica Gray did have a visitor that day. You only heard fragments of the conversation, but you said you saw Monica show the visitor a gun.
That's right.
Cora, who was that visitor? Cora?
Marion, what'd you do that for?
She was going to name you, wasn't she, Miss McKell?
Yes.
I don't believe it.
It's true, Tom. I did go to see Monica that day.
But you didn't...
Kill her? No. Although I suppose I had a good enough motive.
Marion, why didn't you tell anyone about it?
It didn't seem to have anything to do with the case. I guess I was embarrassed. The wife and the other woman meet. It's a somewhat sordid situation. I saw no point in talking about it.
Mrs. McKell, why did you go see her?
The truth, Mr. Queen? All right. Simple curiosity.
Curiosity?
She was my rival, Carson. Yes, I know you were going to end the affair. I suppose I'd won. But here it was a woman you enjoyed being with. I had to know what she was like. It was a little before noon. I rang the bell and introduced myself. I told her I was charity chairman for the building, which happened to be true. And she invited me in. We talked for a while. I must say she was quite charming. I could understand why you were attracted to her, Carson. And finally, she gave me a check for our charities, a sizable one, and I left. It was all very civilized.
Not quite, Mrs. McKell. According to our friend on the radio, you saw Monica's gun.
That's right, I did. You see, she took me into her bedroom. She had an office in there. And, she showed me some of her fashion sketches.
Lady Ruth collection, Lady Thelma, 1946. Lady Dulcia.
They're lovely.
Thank you. And I'm starting on next year's line right now, too. But I'm treating you like a buyer. You're here for something much more important. I'll get that checkbook.
Oh.
It's a necessary evil. I don't even know how to use it.
Is it loaded?
Yes, but it has a safety catch on. I don't like having it, but there's so many robberies in the building this year. Let me write the check.
I suppose the maid happened to look in while she was showing me the gun. But it was all perfectly harmless.
Excuse me. There's two gentlemen to see Mrs. McKell.
What two gentlemen? I have a hunch one of them's a relative of mine.
Evening, folks. Sorry to interrupt. Hello, son.
Quick trip, Dad. Brimmer's hardly off the air.
He called before the show and gave us a preview.
What do you want, Inspector?
Just like to ask your wife a few questions.
No, absolutely not.
I'm sorry, young man. This is official. She'll either answer here or downtown.
Now, we've already been through some of that, Dad. Mrs. McKell did visit Monica, and Monica did show her the gun for easily explainable reasons.
That's fine. We'll get to that. Right now, I'd like to ask you where you were on the night of the murder, Mrs. McKell.
Marion, as your attorney,
Please, Ben. I was in our apartment.
Alone?
Yes. Carson wasn't home, as you know. And the maid had the evening off.
Anyone call or come up?
No, I'm I'm afraid not. It's been a troubling day, and I set out for some sleeping pills. Went to bed early.
Just a minute. You say you got some pills? Where did they come from?
The pharmacy across the street.
Then you did see someone. The delivery boy.
I don't think that helps, Mr. Queen. He came about 9. I believe the inspector is more interested in my alibi at the time Monica Gray was killed.
Yes, ma'am.
Unfortunately, I was asleep. Oh, I do remember waking up once. I thought Carson had come in, and I called to him. It was about 10:30. But, of course, I can't prove that.
I'm afraid I'll have to ask you to come along with me, Mrs. McHale.
Am I under arrest?
No, not at the moment. But it might be a good idea if Mr. Watterson came along as your counsel. Billy?
No, just a minute. I beg you can't let them just...
Answer the
No, wait, you can't.
Ben, they're trying to lock up the whole damn family. Listen, I'll get control of this already. Listen, I'll take care of it. Now, let me have it, please.
She hasn't got an alibi.
Neither does half the population of New York. And what motive, by the way?
The best in the world. Jealousy. Her husband was seeing another woman.
Correction, had been seeing another woman. He was calling it off.
We only have their word for that. Mrs. McHale saw the gun. She was only an elevator ride away.
Circumstantial.
Half our convictions are circumstantial.
The DA was embarrassed in court, and Brimmer embarrassed him on the air. He's looking for a scapegoat, and you're helping him.
I'm doing my job. Now, if you don't have some hard facts, and I mean something better than the last chapter in a mystery book, you'd better go home and burn yourself some lunch.
That's what I like about you, Dad. You got such a nice, open mind.
Ellery, your glasses.
Billy, I've got a personal problem, and so does this department.
What's that, Maestro?
My father is dangerously close to becoming senile.
I heard that, and I want you to know I'm changing my will.
Don't be too hard on him, Maestro. The DA's been on his back. We've had nothing but murders, arson, and robberies around here.
Post-war prosperity, Billy.
You know what's funny? We had another robbery in the McHale building last week.
Really?
Yeah, some guy got away with a mink coat and a pair of ladies' diamond earrings.
Monica's gun.
What?
Don't you remember? The reason she had it was because of all the robberies in that building.
Yeah, that's right. Wait a minute. You don't think she was killed by a thief, do you?
I'll know better when I see the files.
What files?
The ones you're going to get me. Fact sheets on every robbery in that area in the past 6 months.
Maestro, I can't. That's not even my
Please,
department.
Billy,
We got rules.
please, try to have it at my place by this afternoon.
But Maestro...
Billy, please, it's been a very bad day for me. Besides, I've just been disinherited.
Maestro? Maestro. Are you through with the files?
What?
Are you through with the files?
Oh, yeah. Thanks, Billy. You can take them back to headquarters.
You find what you're looking for?
I think so. I don't know. Maybe.
Oh. Well, I'll be glad to get these back on the lock and key. If your father found out I took them, he'd have me back on Fifth Avenue riding a horse.
Really?
Huh?
Would you mind letting yourself out?
Sure, Maestro. No problem.
Okay.
Miss McKell's office.
Gail? Ellery, where do you live?
In the East 70s, why?
Near the McKells?
Well, yes, a few blocks away.
Oh, that's good. Don't make any plans for tonight.
Were you asking me out?
No. In? I'll explain later.
Yes, Miss McKell.
Gail, come in for a minute, will you?
Certainly.
Sit down, Gail. I want to get your reaction to something.
Now, Carson, listen.
Look, I don't care what you hardly
think.
think. Look, please, Gail is practically a member of the family, and I trust her
All
completely.
right, as you wish. Miss Stevens, if you are a friend, perhaps you'll tell him that he's taken leave of his senses.
I don't understand.
Suppose I were to tell you I'm ready to confess to the murder of Monica Gray.
What?
Oh, I didn't do it, and neither did Marion. But it's the only way I can think of to protect her from a trial.
Carson, as your attorney, I cannot tell you more
As
strongly.
my attorney, you should be perfectly aware of the laws governing double jeopardy. I've been acquitted of the murder, and I cannot be tried twice for the same crime. Now, with my confession on record, they've got to let Marion go.
Only if they believe you.
Why shouldn't they believe me?
Because of the testimony of the bartender. Miss Stevens, would you explain that to him? I don't seem to be having much luck today.
Mr. McKell, the bartender, Mr. Cleary, gave you a perfect alibi.
Couldn't he have been mistaken?
Well, the jury didn't think so. You were acquitted on his testimony.
But why can't we get him to retract the identification?
How? By bribing him, perhaps? Carson, use your head. This whole idea of yours is absurd.
I don't want Marion to come to trial. She's a sensitive woman, and she's not up to it.
I care as much about Marion as you do. I'm not just her attorney. I'm her friend as well. And I'm telling you that this whole plan of yours will do her more harm than good.
Do you agree with him?
Yes, sir, I do. If you come forward now, the first thing they're going to think is that you're trying to protect your wife, that the only reason you're confessing is because you know she's guilty.
Exactly my point. Not to mention all the new publicity.
Now, what am I supposed to do? Just sit here?
There's nothing you can do. Private detectives are still on retainer. Perhaps they'll come up with something.
Detectives. Let me tell you about your precious detectives. The only thing they've uncovered so far is the fact that your firm represented Monica Gray.
What?
Not you, one of your partners. It was an infringement of copyright thing about, a couple of years ago. And that's the sort of information they've been handing me. Totally useless.
Excuse me. Mr. McKell.
Yes.
I don't know if this would be at all encouraging, but Ellery Queen just called. He wants to see me.
Socially?
Well, no, I don't think so. I'm sure it has something to do with the case. And it's funny.
What?
It seemed very important to him that I live near you. Yes?
Midtown Pharmacy, ma'am?
Oh, yes, come in. How much is that?
That's a $4.35.
They sent the right pills, didn't they?
I'm sure they did, ma'am. They don't make mistakes with medicine, ma'am.
Well, it's not really medicine. It's just sleeping pills. I had my doctor call over. If I don't get some sleep tonight, I think I'll collapse on my job.
City getting to you, ma'am?
Oh, the sirens and barking dogs and the people upstairs. It sounds like they're walking around in football cleats.
Now, this should do the trick, ma'am.
I must be losing my mind. I was supposed to take this in for repairs today. It's from an admirer. Oh, I'm sorry. Here we are. Duke? Keep the change.
Oh, thank you.
Good night. Was I convincing?
You were brilliant.
No wonder I was star of my high school play. What are you doing? You've locked my key in there.
Watch this.
How did you do that?
Our friend pressed this while he was talking to you.
Then he's coming back.
Well, I hope so. We've dangled enough bait. The pharmacy closes at 10. And since you've just taken some sleeping pills,
I have?
at 10:20, you should go to bed. Didn't she leave you a big enough tip? Now, how on earth did that table get here?
All right, just stay where you are.
Oh, now take it easy. You fire that thing, you'll have the whole building up here.
Hey, come on. The two of you. Into the bedroom. Come on.
Why?
What do you mean, why? I'm going to put you in a closet, and I want to get out of here. Now, come on.
But we already know what you look like.
All right, so I'll leave town. But I want a head start.
Congratulations.
What the heck are you talking about?
Eddie, it's Eddie Carter, isn't it? Eddie, you're in a lot more trouble than you think, but perhaps I can help you. Because you're obviously not a killer.
Wait. How the heck did you know my name?
Gail, would you make Mr. Carter some coffee? Oh, relax, Eddie. There's no phone in the kitchen. Besides, I think it's in your best interest if we have a little talk.
What the heck is going on around here?
Just sit down, make yourself comfortable, put your feet up. Relax. Yeah.
That's all right.
And there was no forced entry. Now, that's what every robbery had in common. So it seemed logical to me that the thief had to be actually in the apartment. Maybe just inside the door where he could open the lock. Now, who better than a delivery boy? Am I boring you?
Oh, no. You keep talking. That's all right.
Eddie, I spent all afternoon making telephone calls, and you know what I found out? I found out that almost every robbery occurred after you made a delivery from the Midtown Pharmacy, usually sleeping pills.
Nice way to make a living. He knew they'd be asleep, so he just walked in.
Wait, get to the point, will you?
Oh, the point is that you work across the street from the McKell apartment. And on the night Monica Gray was killed...
Hey, wait a second. You're not going to pin that murder on me.
Sit down, Eddie. Sit. Yeah, a lot of robberies in that building.
I didn't kill her.
Yeah, but the police will think you did.
I didn't kill her.
Now, that's where I can help you. But you're going to have to tell me the truth, and you're going to have to admit that those are potent sleeping pills.
Maybe, but they make for pretty lousy coffee.
So the night Monica Gray was murdered, you were in the building, weren't you?
You're asking me to convict myself.
For robbery, not murder. And since I got a notion that there's enough evidence in your apartment to put you away, a little cooperation on your part might make things easier.
Yeah, all right. I made a delivery to Mrs. McKell. Is that against the law?
What time?
About 9 o'clock.
You left the door unlocked, but you came back later, didn't you? Eddie?
Yeah, I guess.
Now, this is very important. What time?
10:30.
How can you be so sure?
Because I get off duty at 10. And besides, I read in the paper the next morning the girl was killed while I was in the building. So I damn well better remember, right? Ah.
Eddie, at 10:30, you were in the McKell apartment. Why didn't you steal anything?
Because the old lady woke up.
Bingo. Mr. McKell was in bed?
That's right. She scared me half out of my mind. With all those pills, I thought she'd be out like a light. I guess she heard me. Then she started calling from the bedroom. I guess she thought I was a husband or something.
What did you do?
What else? I got out of there.
So she was in the apartment, half asleep on the night of the murder.
That's right.
Thanks, Eddie. Thanks a lot. You've been a great help.
You'll tell that to the judge, won't you?
Let's go. Eddie?
Well, that leaves Mrs. McKell off the hook. You'll notify her, won't you, Richard?
Yes, sir.
And we're right back where we started. Unless
Eddie killed her? Sorry, it won't work.
Why not?
1, he and Miss McKell alibi each other at the time of death. 2, Eddie had his own gun. Why would he use Monica's? And 3...
Monica didn't order anything from the pharmacy, so there was no reason for him to go to her apartment.
Very good, Dad.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, terrific. Except that now we have no suspects and no leads. Satisfied, Ellery?
No, not really. No, this is the only case where I spent all my time proving who didn't commit a murder.
Well, there's nothing more to be done here tonight. I'm going home to a double scotch and an angry wife. Pleasant dreams, gentlemen. Richard, I'll expect you to have something for me real soon.
Yes, sir. Ellery. Maybe I ought to take the gold watch and retire.
Maybe you should get a good night's sleep. Come on, Dad, I'll drive you home.
Son, you are my only child and a comfort in my old age.
Inspector?
Yeah? But you are the worst driver in the world. If anybody gets behind that wheel, it'll be me.
Messenger boy just delivered this.
There's no return address. Who hired the messenger boy?
He doesn't know. Stuff came in the mail with some cash.
What is it?
Unbelievable.
Dad, what is it?
Just what we've been looking for. Ellery, I think we have our killer.
To whom it may concern, this will solve all your problems. Huh. It's dated the night of the murder with a notation of the time, 9 o'clock. Now, that was an hour and a half before the murder.
Go on.
Carson McKell's son came to visit me tonight.
Keep reading.
He demanded that I stop seeing his father. He was extremely angry, and the next thing I knew, he was trying to strangle me. Then he got frightened and ran out of the apartment. I'm convinced that he's a dangerous person, and if anything happens to me, he will be responsible. I'm giving this letter to a friend who will deliver it to the police in the event of my death. Signed, Monica Gray.
We'll have the handwriting checked, of course. If it turns out to be hers...
Then you'll arrest Tom. Funny.
What?
First the father, then the mother, now the son. We can't seem to get away from the McKell family, can we?
Monica Gray left an incriminating note. Is that true?
Mr. McKell.
Mr. McKell, I'm asking you, is that true?
Were you at her apartment that night?
What can I say? It's true.
Tom, you don't have to volunteer information.
I want to, Ben. It's about time this came out.
Then you're confessing?
Not quite. I mean, I was there that night. I did lose my temper and try to kill her, but when I left her, she was alive.
That's easily proved.
How?
Because if you'd killed her, she couldn't have written the note.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Mr. McKell, maybe you'd better tell me what happened.
Well, I knew for a long time that Dad was seeing another woman. You thought you were being subtle about it, but it was pretty obvious. Yeah, I didn't know what to do. But finally, on the day of the murder, I looked through Dad's appointment book. The name Monica Gray kept turning up. So that night I went to see her.
What time?
It's about 8:30. Well, anyway, I told her who I was, and she let me in. Well, I have a pretty low boiling point, and I wasn't very diplomatic. I finally ordered her to stop seeing Dad. She exploded.
Who are you to tell me what to do? Your father's private life is none of your business.
Miss Gray, my family's my business, and you're not part of it.
There's one thing I don't need. That is a lecture from a Victorian mentality.
Miss Gray.
Now you get out of here right now.
Not until I have your word that you will leave him alone.
My word? You mean you would trust the word of a compromised woman?
Miss Gray.
You are very, very funny.
Miss Gray, I'm warning you.
Before I call the police and have you removed, let me give you a fact of life. That is, if your mother gave your father what he wanted, he wouldn't be seeing me.
You...
Oh, stop! Please!
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I didn't mean...
Get out. Get out!
I'd never come so close to killing a person. You can put me in jail for attempted murder, or indict me for assault. But I didn't kill that woman.
Where were you at 10:30?
Walking, feeling ashamed of myself. No alibi, if that's what you mean. Dad, I'm sorry. I was trying to help, and I just went in over my head.
Well, at least it explains a lot of things. It explains why Monica was too upset to see me that night. It explains why her voice was so hoarse.
Excuse me, but there's something peculiar about this.
That's the understatement of the year.
No, I'm serious, Dad. Monica writes a letter and gives it to a friend in case she meets with foul play. But the friend doesn't deliver it to the police even after Monica's murdered. He holds on to it, and then he suddenly sends it in. Why?
I can tell you that. I was being blackmailed.
You were what?
2 days after she was killed, I got her letter in the mail. A photostatic copy. There was a note with it threatening to send the original to the police unless I paid $500 a week.
To whom?
No name and no address, just a box number at the post office.
And you paid, naturally.
Oh, wouldn't you? The one thing our family didn't need was more scandal.
But why would the blackmailer stop the money machine? Why would he send this stuff to us?
Because I finally got tired of being taken. I tried to find out who he was.
How?
Last week when I made my payment, I hired some detectives to watch the box. But he must have seen them, because he never picked up the money. I guess this was his way of getting even.
You seem disturbed, Mr. McKell.
I am disturbed. I didn't tell anyone, but I was being blackmailed, too. Obviously the same man.
What?
Somehow he found out about Monica and me. This was some months ago. He sent me a note, threatening to tell your mother unless I paid him $500 a week.
Same business with the post office box?
Exactly the same. Naturally, I stopped all payments after the murder.
Interesting character, this blackmailer. Aside from knowing about you and Monica, he was in her apartment the night of the murder.
Why do you say that?
Well, look at the facts, Dad. Monica wrote her note to the police at 9 o'clock, saying she was going to give it to a friend. But when you found the body at 10:45, there was no note in that apartment.
She must have called him. He came over and took the letter with him.
Looked like Grand Central Station that night. You were there, Tom. So was the murderer. Now we got a blackmailer who had to be on the scene.
Unless, of course, the blackmailer and the murderer are the same person. Inspector, we now know that Monica had a mysterious friend. They were together that night. He killed her, took the letter, and blackmailed Tom.
That's possible.
It's better than that. It's probable. And it blows your case against Tom sky high.
Maybe, maybe not. Right now, I'm interested in Monica's friend. Anybody got any idea who it might be? Yep.
Gentleman to see you, Inspector. Mr. Brimmer.
Who?
America's favorite connoisseur of crime, Dad. By all means, let's see him.
Send him in.
Well, I'm sorry, Inspector. I didn't know you were occupied. Perhaps I should come back later.
Not at all. Not at all. My father always has time to talk with a concerned citizen. The McKells, Mr. Watterson, Simon Brimmer.
A genuine pleasure, gentlemen.
Not for me, Brimmer. You're the one who involved my mother.
I never said she was guilty, Mr. McKell, only that the police had overlooked significant information. No offense, Inspector.
What do you want?
Just a fact or two.
Rumor has it that Monica Gray left a note implicating young Mr. McHale here.
That's none of your
The
business.
rumor's true. The note was missing when the police arrived, but somebody sent it to my father just yesterday.
Ah. Then no doubt you've deduced that somebody else would have to be there the night of the murder.
Something like that, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Queen. Thank you very much. You've just given me the last piece to the puzzle.
I have?
I can see the answer still eludes you. A pity. But if you listen to my program this evening, everything will be crystal clear. Now, if you'll excuse me.
Just a minute. If you're withholding evidence...
It's not evidence, Inspector, just deductions. And that's hardly a crime. Good morning.
Why did you give him all that information on a silver platter?
Because I think he's onto something.
What?
I have no idea. But along with a few million other people, we're going to find out tonight.
The solution of the case, of course, lies within the character of Monica Gray herself. After a bit of browsing, I made an intriguing discovery. The late Miss Gray was a one-man woman. And it seemed that every year recently there was a new and ardent admirer in her life. In 1945, according to Winchell, she was seen around town with a textile magnate named Peter Hurt. She and Mr. Hurt came to a parting of the ways, and in 1946 she kept company with the well-known stage actor, Geoffrey Lord. Mr. Lord was replaced in Miss Gray's affection only this year. She dined frequently at the Stork Club with the French diplomat, Claude Gerard. I've spoken to these gentlemen, but each has an irrefutable alibi. However, there is reason to believe that she was seeing still another man, someone new, someone who was with her during her final hours and who made off with a certain message she intended for the police. I'll return with the final unraveling after this word from our sponsor.
What's all the fuss? We knew about those men.
Well, I didn't.
Well, there was no reason to tell you. We checked them out and eliminated them.
Not there. Oh. No, that's not it. He's beaten us again. Why didn't I really read those files?
What? What are you looking for?
An address.
An address? What address?
It's around here someplace. I'll know it when I see it. That's not there. An address, numbers. Phone. Ha! Dad, call in to have squad cars meet us at 715 West 96th Street.
Wait a minute, that sounds familiar. What is it?
Dad, please hurry. I'll get the car.
A new lover. A man who knew about her relationship with Carson McHale and blackmailed him. A man who tried to blackmail Tom McHale. Finally, the man who was in her apartment that night after Tom had gone and shot her to death.
What are you doing?
It's all right, Dad. I know what he's going to say. I should have guessed it months ago.
Guessed what? And that's a red light.
Sorry. Dad, get a pencil and pad out of the glove compartment. Write down the names of Monica's boyfriends. In 45, Peter Hurt. Just write the last name. And the next is...
It's green.
Who?
The light, it's green.
Oh. In 46, it was Geoffrey Lord, the actor. World famous for playing Hamlet. Put down Hamlet. In 47, Claude, the diplomat.
Claude, got it.
Now keep in mind that Monica was a very bright lady. A puzzle addict, remember?
Ellery.
She wanted a way to commemorate the man in her life.
Ellery.
So in 1945, she designed a collection of clothes. You remember the drawings, Dad. She called it the Lady Ruth Collection.
Anagrams.
Exactly. Switch around the letters of the word Ruth and you get...
Hurt. Peter Hurt. H-U-R-T equals R-U-T-H.
Right. And the next was...
Lady Thelma. Switch Thelma around and it spells Hamlet. Ellery, that car.
It's all right. Easy. Finally, there's this year's collection. And what did Monica call it? Lady Dulcia. Dulcia is an anagram for C-L-A-U-D-E, Claude. That's what Brimmer tumbled to. She named her collection after the men in her life.
Stop the car.
No, we're not there yet.
And we won't get there with you driving. Now stop the car and get out. Now get to the point. She used anagrams, but I told you those three men have alibis.
Dad, you're forgetting something. I have a hunch that Claude had already seen his day with Monica. She had somebody new.
Carson McHale.
No, I don't think so. I mean, one of her long-term affairs. She had a new collection on her drawing board. She was working on it when she was killed.
Yeah, a pencil sketch.
Right.
Now, what was it again?
Lady Norma.
I don't believe it. It's
Ramon.
The McKell chauffeur and Monica Gray's last lover. The man who, by all logic, was with her in her apartment that night. Carson McKell was right. She was expecting someone else. As soon as Tom ran out, she called Ramon. When he arrived, he saw the letter she had written to the police. It was a golden opportunity for further blackmail. Perhaps they argued. Perhaps their relationship was already showing the strain of their differing social stations. In any event, Ramon almost certainly knew where the gun was kept. He took it from its drawer, aimed it at his lover, and...
I think I saw somebody at the window.
Well, he's not in there now.
Well, should we wait for the inspector?
Yeah. Cover the back and the front. Tell him.
There he is, Sergeant.
he in there?
We spotted him a few seconds ago.
Everything covered?
Yes, sir.
Let's go in.
Ramon! This is Inspector Queen. Open up. Ramon! Billy! Fire escape.
See anything?
No, but they're up there.
Watch yourself! Ramon, you'll never make it! Come on, let's go downstairs, huh? We have some coffee. Come on. Don't do it! Ramon! Ramon! Hold on!
Well, I realize the weather's subject to change, but that itemized list I gave you is just that. It's an itemized list. You should be able to get all the pieces out. Oh, they won't be tied up at that time. Good. Then the trucks will be working. Good. You'll have all of Monica's stuff delivered. What? Oh, sure you can use the police photographs. Right. And you will have it delivered. I can count on that. Thank you.
You're up early.
Excuse me. I didn't go to bed. I've been up reading.
Well, that's the script for the news and weather program on TV. You've read that 100 times.
Well, it just goes to show you how stupid I am.
Ellery, give it up. The case is closed. Ramon even saved us the cost of a trial.
He didn't kill her.
What?
It's taken me this long, Dad, but I finally figured it out.
Ellery.
The solution. The end of the case. It'll come at 10:25 tonight.
You're saying...
I know who killed Monica Gray. Dad, I'll make you breakfast. Do you know who killed Monica Gray? If you've been watching closely, you have all the information you need. You know, for example, it's not the father because I proved him innocent. Or did I? Maybe it's the mother, or the son, or the faithful secretary, or maybe it's somebody on the sidelines. But don't go too far afield. It's not my father. At least I don't think it is. Well, good luck. Hey, you're probably way ahead of me anyhow. Hey, Dad. Breakfast? Here are the sketches you wanted, Ken. Will you put them in the right order? Okay, thank you very much. You the cameraman? How do you do?
Mr. Queen?
Yes.
Like to look at the script?
Yeah, thanks very much.
You bet.
That camera? Oh, and him. Thank you. How about you?
Sure, hope so. Mr. Queen, I think we've waited long enough watching you arrange this boring paraphernalia. The least you might have done was provide champagne.
It's not a celebration, Mr. Brimmer.
Then what is it? Until your call, I thought everything was resolved.
Ellery, I'm getting a little nervous. Ramon was guilty, wasn't he?
Of blackmail, yes. Of being in Monica Gray's apartment that night, yes. But not a murder.
Nonsense.
Turn on the lights, please. This is a layout of Monica Gray's apartment. I had the furniture taken from storage.
Yes, you've certainly gone to a great deal of trouble, Mr. Queen. Might one ask why?
To disprove your theory, Mr. Brimmer. All right, what do we know about Monica Gray? She was bright, she was clever, and she enjoyed word games. Now, here's where she fell when she was shot. Right by this sketch. Now, it's agreed that she wanted to leave us a clue to the murderer's identity. So she dragged herself past this coffee table to the television set.
Ellery, we know all that.
All right. Let's go a step further. Let's assume Ramon did kill her. Why on earth didn't she just hold on to the sketch? It was right there. And written on it are the words Lady Norma. Norma being an anagram for Ramon. Why crawl clear across the room when the best clue was just inches away? And another thing. A planter in the shape of a car. Ramon was the chauffeur. She wanted to blame him. All she had to do was grab the car. We would have found it in her hands, but she didn't. Why? Because he didn't kill her. She wanted to implicate somebody else.
Ellery, it's almost 10.
Thanks, Dad. The gentlemen in the next set are going to recreate the exact news broadcast that was on the air that night. They have the original script, and because television timing is so very accurate, it should be interesting to see what was on the screen at 10:25. They've hooked up Monica's television set, so the broadcast will come from there.
10 o'clock.
Good evening. This is our 4th week of bringing you world and local news through the exciting new medium of television, your window on the globe. President Truman expressed approval this morning of the Attorney General's investigation into who might be responsible for increasing prices on housing, food, and clothing. Mr. Truman said that this would constitute an effort to determine who is profiting beyond normal margins. In Nuremberg, 21 former officials of a chemical trust pleaded not guilty when arraigned before the War Crimes Court on charges of having plotted the war for corporate gain. And on the local scene, Mayor O'Dwyer said he'd like to see a grand jury established in each county to inquire into gambling practices. The mayor praised the Queens County grand jury for investigating alleged police grafting on bookmakers. Finally, President Truman will be in New York tomorrow to inspect the site of the new United Nations building and to meet with state and local Democratic leaders. They will return to Washington before nightfall. And now, a look at tomorrow's weather.
Well, it's going to be rain and more rain. 4 soggy days. But that static cloud cover is finally blowing out to sea. And according to the Weather Bureau, clearing conditions will continue throughout the weekend. And that friendly old ball of fire in the sky is going to be smiling all along the eastern seaboard. Yes, all things considered, Jones Beach or Coney Island might be a good idea.
Stop. Monica was dying. She looked up, and what did she see staring her in the face on her television set?
The sun.
S-U-N, but also S-O-N. And remember, Monica liked word games. Simple process of elimination. Gail had no motive, so let's talk about the McKell family. Father, alibi. Mother, alibi. But son...
No alibi. Out walking.
That's why she pulled the plug on the clock. She wanted us to know what was on television at exactly 10:25. The son, Tom McKell.
You can never prove this. They'll laugh you out of court.
Tom, what happened?
Dad, you don't understand.
What happened?
Dad, I didn't want to. I didn't mean. After I left her, I walked around for a long time. My head cleared, and I realized I tried to kill her.
So you went back?
I wanted to apologize. I took the elevator to her penthouse. But as I went toward a door, it opened, and Ramon came out. I couldn't believe it.
You decided she was stringing your father along while she was having an affair with a family chauffeur, a servant, a nobody.
I hid in the corridor until he took the elevator. Then I tapped on her door. She must have thought it was him because she opened it. I didn't know what I was doing. I yelled at her, called her every name in the book. I threatened her.
And then?
She got her gun. I took it away from her and...
Tom, it was an accident, wasn't it?
I don't know. Dad, I never would have let them put you or Mother in prison. If necessary, I would have confessed.
Really?
Inspector, telephone call for you.
Nice piece of deduction, Queen. You know, when the dust settles from this, we really must have lunch. With the publicity from this, there's no question that you and I...
Right. Heck, everybody. Come on, Dad. Let's go home.
Well, I can't. We've got to go down to Gramercy Park. Somebody just murdered a millionaire art collector. Just your kind of case, Ellery.
Good night, Dad.
Really very strange. 30 paintings in the house, all of them turned to the wall.
See you at breakfast.
What harm would it do to take a look?
Did you say 30 paintings turned to the wall?
Yeah.